The sirens hit first. Not one or two, but a full chorus, slicing through the early morning calm of our quiet cul-de-sac like a war cry nobody asked for. Red and blue lights bounced off the neatly trimmed hedges and pastel shutters, casting the entire block in this surreal, almost apocalyptic glow. I stood on my porch, still in my gym clothes, coffee mug in hand, staring at the convoy parked in front of my house, 3 camo-painted military trucks, 2 Humvees, and a matte black SUV with a tiny antenna spinning on top like it was searching for enemy signals. And then, like clockwork, Karen appeared. She came storming out from behind her hydrangeas, arms crossed, lips pursed like she was holding in a Bible verse and a lawsuit at the same time. Her iPhone was already out, the camera rolling as she marched toward the convoy like she had been cast in a true crime documentary, and this was her big break. I knew she had called 911 the moment I heard the first siren, but even I didn't think she'd go full throttle like this. She was yelling about unauthorized vehicles, militarization of residential zones, and something about the Geneva Conventions. The poor soldiers were doing their best to stay professional, coordinating logistics, checking the manifest, doing their job like they were trained to do. But Karen wasn't having it. She was determined to make this into a scandal. Only problem? She had no idea what kind of delivery she was interfering with. See, I run a logistics company, not your typical moving boxes and office chairs kind, but a federally certified outfit that specializes in emergency response equipment. We deliver mobile comms units, tactical water filtration systems, and gear you only see when things go sideways in a big way. This particular drop was part of a FEMA and Homeland Security joint simulation. It had been on the books for 6 months, cleared through channels way above Karen's clipboard. But to her, it was a violation of HOA law and aesthetics. The police arrived next, 5 cruisers and a supervisor unit. Then came the K-9 truck, and for a moment I half expected a chopper to land on my roof. Karen greeted them like royalty, waving them down with dramatic flair and pointing at the soldiers like they were invaders. They've got weapons. They're setting up equipment. This is a peaceful neighborhood. One of the officers approached me, and I calmly handed him my DoD contractor badge and a clipboard with all the permits. He glanced at it, blinked, and then turned to Karen. "Ma'am," he said with the kind of tone you use when you're breaking up with someone who thinks you're getting married, "you just filed a false report on a federal operation. That could be obstruction." For the first time since I moved in, Karen was speechless. But she didn't stay that way for long. No, Karen regrouped. She spent that entire day online, posting in the neighborhood Facebook group, framing it like she had saved the community from military intrusion. She printed out grainy photos of the convoy, passed them around in mailboxes, and then delivered a formal HOA citation to my door accusing me of violating community standards by inviting armed forces without board approval. I laughed so hard I spilled my coffee. But it didn't stop there. That night, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Karen, seated at the front table like she was presiding over a Senate hearing, launched into a speech about community trauma and how some residents had experienced emotional distress seeing camo trucks on their block. She passed around a stack of photos like evidence in a court case, and I had to stand up just to clear the fog of absurdity. "Karen," I said, "you called the cops on a federally sanctioned delivery. You harassed active duty personnel. This isn't about community safety. This is about your need to control everything you see." She tried to fire back, flipping to a binder page and citing something called Section 4B of the Residential Disruption Policy. All vehicle activity exceeding 30 minutes must be approved 72 hours in advance, she declared. Jim, the HOA treasurer, finally piped up. "Karen, that rule's for moving vans, not FEMA convoys." The room chuckled. Karen didn't. By week's end, she had tried everything, sent me a phony letter from a made-up agency called the Department of Neighborhood Affairs, tried to start a petition to expel me from the neighborhood, and even began wearing a laminated badge that said HOA Enforcement Liaison, like she was deputized by the president. But the real shift happened when Homeland Security got involved. They arrived on Monday. 3 people, a lieutenant colonel in dress uniform, and 2 civilian agents with briefcases. They were polite, firm, and very serious. They explained that Karen's interference had triggered a review because the delivery she disrupted was part of a classified simulation tied to FEMA's National Readiness Protocol. Her behavior had become a documented incident. Karen, of course, tried to butt in. She marched up to my lawn while the officers were inside and demanded to speak with someone in charge. The colonel stepped out, clipboard in hand. "Ma'am," she said calmly, "you are currently trespassing. This is a federal matter." Karen puffed up. "I have a right to know what's happening in my community." "Then I suggest you file an official information request through the Department of Civil-Military Coordination. Until then, step back." Karen turned red, then purple, then some new shade of embarrassment that hadn't been invented yet. 2 days later, DHS officially flagged her behavior. They issued notices to multiple residents about a community-level review and cited Karen by name in a document labeled "Reported Civilian Actors." She still claimed she was the one who brought an oversight, calling herself a whistleblower, while printing fake newsletters and passing them around like she was saving us from tyranny. The convoy returned for a drill. This time they used 3 locations in the neighborhood. Orange cones, drones, radios. It was a full operational stress test. Karen tried to shut it down, screaming in the street. The colonel met her again, this time with a warrant under the Stafford Act giving temporary federal access to all roads in Evergreen Ridge. Karen looked like someone had unplugged her. She backed away quietly for once. The media showed up again, but this time they had their facts straight. Karen, ever the attention magnet, gave a statement blaming me and claiming the neighborhood was being militarized without consent. The story that aired painted a very different picture. HOA leader under federal investigation for obstructing emergency operations. The neighborhood Facebook group went nuclear. Screenshots of Karen's fake agency letters, her clubhouse rants, even her Geneva Convention slideshow made their way around. A few veterans posted long, thoughtful statements condemning her behavior. One post read, "This is what happens when power is given to people who crave it but never earned it." And then came the audit. The HOA board was suspended pending review. Karen's position was dissolved in a special vote. 3 members resigned, one admitting he stayed on the board only because Karen had threatened him over mailbox paint. Karen disappeared for a few days. When she re-emerged, she was stripped of her lanyard, no sunglasses, no clipboard. Just Karen, walking to the mailbox like any other person. She wouldn't even look me in the eye. That silence was louder than all her complaints. The neighborhood threw a block party that weekend. Someone brought a plaque, hammered it into my lawn near where the first truck had parked. It read, "Designated Federal Drop Point, Evergreen Ridge Sector." Homemade, a little crooked, but beautiful. The colonel showed up out of uniform, just to say thanks. Kids played in the street. Neighbors laughed freely. For the first time, it felt like a neighborhood again. A week later, Karen's house went up for sale. She moved out before sunrise. No goodbyes. No drama. Just gone. Now we've got a new board. The president's a retired schoolteacher who plants flowers along the sidewalk. People post bake sale flyers on the bulletin board. No more veil threats. No more surveillance from windows. Sometimes folks ask about the plaque by my driveway. Is that real? I just smile and say, real enough. Because in the end, this wasn't about trucks or permits or HOA bylaws. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to turn power into a weapon. It was about remembering that real leadership doesn't hide behind rules, it listens, protects, and builds trust. And if a convoy has to roll through to remind people of that, well, so be it. If you've ever dealt with someone like Karen, or seen how a little power can twist a good thing into something toxic, let me know in the comments. Would you have handled it differently? Have you ever had to stand up against your own HOA? Share your story, because I promise you, someone out there needs to hear it.